Imagine the world before the internet. Before Google, email, online shopping and social networks. Can you? Since the internet opened the doors for everyone and anyone to produce and publish content, every day there are more and more people connecting to the virtual world.
Today, you have millions of consumers online engaging in new ways throughout social media and throughout the many kinds of professional and unprofessional networks.
There are 4.6 billion mobile phone subscribers worldwide, and between 1 and 2 billion of those are accessing the internet on their phones. Facebook has 1.06 billion monthly active users, who together share 30 billion pieces of content every month. And 465 million Twitter accounts write approximately 175 million tweets every day.
The amazing thing about the information age right now is that the amount of information available in the world and the amount of information that a person processes throughout a single day is more information than our grandfathers processed through their whole life. So we're in a context of abundance, of a lot of data.
Internet users all over the world are creating exponentially growing amounts of data. So, just how much data are we talking about? Today, 2.7 zettabytes, that's 27 with 21 zeros after it, of data exist in the digital universe. And this amount just keeps growing. Every 2 days, we create as much information as we did from the beginning of time up to 2003.
Tweet streams, government documents, patent filings, there's 1.5 million academic journals, academic articles published every year, a huge volume of scientific literature that no one reads. News articles, 1 million news articles every day are being churned out through blogs and newspapers around the world. You've got lectures and TV coming through YouTube. There's a huge amount of information that's out there, and we're able to capture it and start to structure it so that we can actually understand this world.
We are drowning in data. But what does all of this information mean? How can we use it? Today on Market, we'll discover what businesses around the world are doing with all this data that's flying around in the digital world. We'll learn how they separate the useful information from the stuff that's just noise, and the essential role it plays in building brands, bettering consumer services, and even creating a better world. Welcome to the era of big data. Big data has quickly become a buzzword, but what does the term actually mean? And where is all of this data coming from?
Big data is what its name basically says. It's a lot of data. We just need to figure out how to search through it, how to sort it, and how to apply efficient algorithms that get the best out of the huge piles of information that we have online. And big data basically is big potential.
But I think big data is a bit more than that. It's almost a philosophy, and at the heart of the philosophy is that it's an empiricism. That if we measure enough about the world, we can start to understand what's driving the world, and we can make better decisions from that. And I think that's really what the heart of big data is.
Although big data is now a trendy term, just a decade ago it didn't even exist. The term was coined during the 90s by John Massey, chief scientist at Silicon Graphics, a computer graphics giant that developed special effects in Hollywood and video surveillance for spy agencies. In the process, they dealt with new kinds of data, and lots of it, hence big data.
Big data was the name that catched on in order to talk about this new phenomena related to the huge piles of information that we have available.
Businesses doing data analysis isn't anything new. But what is new is the sheer quantity of data made available through social networks.
There's the Industrial Revolution, where you basically created the industrial. It was enabled by shipping energy. You could actually move energy, and so you could build stuff wherever you want to build. Then came the Information Revolution, which was characterized by shipping bits. The internet being the best example of that. And that came the Social Data Revolution, characterized by creating bits at scale. So it was not just the transport, but it's the individual who could create information now and, of course, ship it. So in that sense, I think it has an impact on 1 billion people.
A billion avid internet users means 1 billion potential consumers.
People make their shopping decisions differently now than what they used to be based on information other people created. 1 billion people think about themselves differently based on what they create and share with the world and what others create and share with the world. So in that sense, I think it is a revolution if it has hit the minds of 1 billion people.
Every purchase, every like on Facebook, all of our online actions become a part of our digital footprint that's being tracked.
We share what kind of movie we saw yesterday, what music we're listening, where we're going out, where we're traveling.
If you think about the amount of data you create, and not only the amount of data which doubles every 1.5 years, but the different kinds of data, social, local, mobile, what you create on Facebook with your friends, that gives you unprecedented insights into who you are, what you are thinking, who you want to be with, whether you know it or not.
We're generating so much data that analysts predict that by 2020, the amount of data will be 50 times what it is today. But what can we do with all this information?
Every single company out there can and must start considering. It doesn't matter if you're a large organization selling big consumer products that always goes to retail stores and you have a big infrastructure behind. If you are a mom and pop shop and you have or you are renting a small apartment for tourists, or you have a small little shop where you sell your own little inventions, whatever it is, whatever kind of startup that you're working on, no matter how small it is, the tools to market it, the tools to put your message out there, to identify your target, they're already available. They're very easy to incorporate, to understand, and to use, to test with very little sums of money. You can try out.
Up next on Market, we'll discover how big data is being put to use. What do you do with big data? Having access to the information we're continuously creating is like owning a gold mine with no equipment to dig it. Big data means nothing without its large-scale data analytics.
There's been a traditional story of big data as this black box, this machine that you hit a button and it processes it and it spits out an answer. The reality is that's so far away from where we are today, and it may never come to that place. We can do that for simple things like what's the right color blue to have on the links that you click in Google, or what's the what's the best price to put laundry detergent in the supermarket. But we don't by any means have something that can generate an idea for you. We try and design a place where the humans can interact with all that information and start to come up with their own questions and their own answers. But we're not in the business of giving them answers.
The key is to filter the noise. And it's certainly not an easy task. It cannot be done anymore with human effort. That's the big news. We have to rely on computing efforts, and we have to rely on modern ways of mining data and applying modern algorithms to process the data.
Some people have already managed to deal with the big data in a successful way. The University of California and the LAPD are using big data to foresee crime before it even happens. Analysts at MIT are using mobile phone data to establish how people's locations and traffic patterns can better urban planning. A more obvious example of big data being put to use is Google and its search engine algorithm.
They base their algorithm in an academic notion that is very common in academia, that is reputation. That logic was applied to filter the web, to filter the millions and millions of web pages that we navigate every day. And that same concept they applied to their own algorithm in order to filter the results of the Google searches that we do every single day. So being able to reduce the noise from the signal is being able to know what has a greater reputation or what has a greater impact, a greater influence, and understanding who are the key opinion formers or who are the influencers or what is the content of a message that really makes people tick.
Amazon also uses algorithms to mine huge piles of information to figure out the best design of the web page for you personally.
So the impact of recommendation algorithms is very big. In the case of Amazon, the most effective one is collaborative filtering. They are basically tapping into the collective intelligence, detecting the patterns of every single user that connects through Amazon, and basically they tell you, the person that bought this book, you might also be interested in buying these other books, because they know that other consumers came before you, and usually the one who buys this tries to buy this other one related book. While when you get that huge amount of data and the amount of users that Amazon gets, applying that very simple algorithm has a very deep impact in terms of improving the quality of the experience of buying online, the bottom line for Amazon in terms of revenue.
For marketing businesses, big data is the fundamental outcome of the new marketing landscape, born from the digital world we now live in. Out with the old, in with the new.
Traditional ways of understanding your market was to do a market research survey, or you could do a focus group, and you can have 20 people in a room in a Hessel camera being interviewed and ask them questions. But that is a very slow-paced process. It takes many months, it's very costly, and the sample is always biased because they are aware that you are actually asking them questions, and there's always hidden factors that will contaminate the results of the survey or of the work.
Right now, what we traditionally do is we measure the effectiveness of our campaigns. We measure how good a television commercial works. We measure our effectiveness constantly, and we come back and we look at what works, what doesn't work, and how do we adjust. The challenge is the consumer never stands still. Their tastes, their interests, their likes are constantly moving, right? So even though we're getting feedback from the research, the target moves. So it's a combination of learning what worked and what didn't work, and trying to predict where the consumer's mind is going and what is interesting and what's not interesting. That's the challenge.
It's quite clear that we're going to get, if we apply big data algorithms and very efficient techniques to mine that data, to understand the meaning out of that huge piles of data that consumers are generating daily, that we are going to get a high definition picture or even a high-definition movie about our consumers being updated in real time.
I mean, big data is kind of a new thing, but I think we're at the very beginning of a new era where I think the chief marketing officer and the chief information officer within a company are going to be spending a lot more time together. Because of the capability that big data will bring, the ability to have much more in-depth analytical capability about everything you're doing is very intriguing to us as marketers. It's technically still challenging, but I definitely see a convergence between information technology and marketing that 5 years ago we didn't think about.
Big data's influence doesn't stop there. It can even direct the actions of entire countries.
We can do a lot of that stuff now with computers, so that instead of sitting down and reading thousands of articles every day, you can log into the computer and have an experience that's pretty much like the cognitive map of an expert, but you can effectively upload that into your brain. I can log in and get thousands of documents about scientific disciplines, about patents, about news articles, about government filings, and I can know within the space of an hour the landscape, how it's evolved, the major players, the relationships, and I can kind of ask questions and see nuance within that at a level that's commensurate with what an expert would have.
Imagine the ability to almost instantly become an expert on any subject. The questions you could answer know no boundaries.
Which company do I buy? What's happening in China? Or what should my message be around climate change for the youth in India? So quite complex, difficult questions, that could range from, how do you change ideology in Syria, through to, how do you purchase the right mobile telecommunications company to enhance my banking experience in Argentina.
Coming up, we'll be looking into more of the repercussions of big data and finding out what issues of privacy come from being able to tap into every aspect of our online behavior. What are the implications of big data? Big data's reach is expanding almost as quickly as the amount of data itself. But to what extent will it affect our lives?
I think it's going to transform everything we know, from the way we buy books to our healthcare system, our transportation system. Entire sectors of the economy are going to be reinvented when it comes to big data and analytics. But what's important is it's not just about big data, but it's about insights that come out of that big data, right? So it's easy to just kind of collect data, but what's really, really important is to figure out how do you get insights out of the data that you have.
Big data is where this is all going.
Many people want to attach a certain size to big data, but it's not the size, it's the motion, as they say. It's what you do with it.
Big data means big possibilities. But when we are the data, just how much can they do with it?
Take as an example a company in the Bay Area called Bay Sensors. So when you walk through Palo Alto, all the stores have little black dots, which is outward-facing cameras. Of course, no expectation of privacy as you're walking on the street. Bay Sensors collects all those data and now knows that that Asian girl, she is walking faster today than she normally walks, but she spent 5 minutes at Foot Locker. Because of course, they combine the facial recognition with the telephone ID and with the MAC ID of the Wi-Fi address. So now they have a pretty good pattern. Bay Sensors now helps businesses, as a customer walks in, to understand that customer already much better than a good shop assistant can by sussing out the person. Another example is face deals, which takes pictures of your faces and as you walk in the store, compares it to the image database it has, and makes you the special deal or prepares your mocha with 2 shots and low-fat milk right away because it knows who you are. So you can do the face recognition to your mobile.
Companies are collecting information about us all the time, which for some raises concerns about privacy.
We're going to see more of this, not less of this in the short-term future. We must be very aware of the potential of these algorithms because like any technological tool, they can do great good, but of course they can do some evil too. The very minute some flaw, some privacy issue explodes around one of these organizations, it's on the headlines of every single newspaper. So I assume that they must be very aware about respecting the privacy concerns of their users and understanding how to tap the potential of these huge amounts of data by delivering more meaningful messages to their consumers.
What is it that they are worried about? And when you drill down on this, in many cases that they are worried that they get bombarded with even worse ads than what they have seen before. But they don't think it through that why would an ad be shown to them if there is no chance that they will ever react positively onto it? You could argue that the more data the companies have, the ad exchanges have, the better a job we can do to help people discover things which they genuinely want to discover.
Controlling privacy can be as simple as being aware of the data that we generate.
I think all consumers should be very aware of the fact that when they make a public statement on Twitter or on Facebook, they have to be aware that it's a public statement. Or Twitter is like going out to the park. And if you go out to the park and shout out something, you can definitely expect some kind of reaction because you're in a public space. So I think consumers should be very aware. Now, if you are going to talk about more delicate stuff, that you want to keep it more intimate, and you just basically have to be aware of the tools that you're using. And definitely privacy is a big concern, and we have to raise awareness of consumers that they are part of public places.
In my personal opinion, is what the Food and Drug Administration did with food, which was that a very simple label that lets you know what ingredients are in a bag of chips or a soft drink that you're buying, and then on top of that gives you a very, very simple table that tells you how many calories it has, tells you the carbohydrate content or the protein content, way you can with food. Whether you may not eat something that has 1,000 calories, you may make a different decision because you want something that has 200 calories. I think we need to move in that direction when it comes to privacy.
Regardless of privacy concerns, this is no doubt just the beginning for big data.
If you want to get a picture out of your market and you want to get it in real time and you want to stay updated and you want to make it in a very low cost way because computing costs keep going down, definitely the road to the future is getting the step towards using big data techniques and embracing these new technologies will keep any organization today way more competitive than the organizations that keep thinking in traditional ways of surveying their market.
That's it for this episode of Market. Join in next time as we wander into another aspect of this digital area and discover more of the issues and tools of the marketing world.